Are there any outlets in this?
Yeah, there is some right there. Here, you need it to stretch out.
Yeah, that would be
I got
great.
one of these.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm gonna super quickly copy and paste this link to send to my friend.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm gonna be 10 seconds.
They're really excited to see this. I know. I'm really happy.
Potential Minnesota bound.
Potential Minnesota. We'll go first. No, which is really exciting. So.
I'm ready now.
Okay. And again, if it's too fast, just let me know. Plan the United States should adopt a nuclear diversity policy. Advantage 1 is accident advances to check modernization, ensure the professional nuclear risk accident to guarantee program. 23 medical components and are more susceptible to suffering average to introduce malware digital components to infiltrate network and non-network nuclear system bombardment competence to sacrifice safety and originate from a paratarget certain network vulnerabilities, increase risk of launch congestion or critical system which can reduce threats and warning against second strike to attack rate confusion and make it difficult to distinguish short time length risk by ever-growing data systems that are modernized and integrated ML introduce risk data can be poisoned or biased training is challenging simulations relying on accurate intel systems are trained on no capabilities may classified no capability automation biases prevalent safer or second over low line incident to early trust new systems are uniquely dangerous they emphasize offense the cost credible offense for the plan ensures balance land 21 existing no credit price on value before IoT cyber reduce failure result in nuke war nuke follow demand intense opportunity nukes and cyber risk culture programs and databases crisis black clouds specialist song kinks and network are kept separate are not real even when air gaps humans enable adversaries to jump the gap supply chain vulnerability introduced at any point at 35 require alien line to quit exploitation and delivery make graphics of a DoD system for land services the department does not control cyber that minimal due to agent that the system disconnected into through new system will be never connected to cyber enabled and will not connectivity to the rest of the system integrating nuke warfare includes greater demands on into the deterrence complexity means more flatly evaluating security more difficult functional requirements of the system determined its architectural cybersecurity often harmed by use of patch new crisis cyber regardless not of an attack of Venus that has the upper pan of Venus not new or create through cyber compromise to turn inevitable uptake of unsafe AI magnifies risk fit and if you ensures integrations Goldilocks bond box 22 precious intended to use mel than NT3 ML outperform humans also safer states such as surpassing adversaries tag NC3 risk rush integration with higher risk tolerance to outcome stated need for error for NC3 early warning process inflation for time and increasingly complicated error remove worse than humans combat rich speeds too fast AI essential for any defense box platform carbon catastrophic in a nuclear context makes difficult to charge out on the flaws can remain armor ball always lead to surprises relevant in nukes way given to standard activity making normal action appear threatening result in nuclear mishaps don't discount chaos info can be acted on water mean haste necessary to maintain deterrence tech problems may be unsolvable and non-tech angle allows us to bypass flaws by mitigating dangerous excess after imperfect system in a critical role solution is interview and restrict travel launch making it possible for invert use sloppy practices magnify vulnerabilities plot is 15 including left deterrence as a illusion may have come to hindsight by its frustrated false causal relation of the height of the human crisis supply chain stating to Soviet airspace intercepted sense was coordinated home missiles with placed nukes in there pilots could decide to use virtually to Soviet hellfire misperception could have led to disaster if not lucky sloppy practices occurred at all levels show the limits of learning and MNU space 6 because of it safely flown had not been guarded change supposed to follow but in 13 one officer at the same base were punished for sleeping on the trouble having the blast or even officers such violations happen office limits of safety CNC and sloppy practices should just like is important to the plan Solves adopting an NFU ensures the teach change of doctrine and operations Animal 23 US NFU policy adopting this one involved more than chief output requires doctrinal and operational changes would eliminate first strike posture capabilities and other destabilize and strats but emphasize for training alert levels pro given a modernization to achieve physical qualities of forces in a way that renders them unsuitable for missions other than deterrence steps reduce accidental or preemptive use also straining crisis stability and NFU will reduce the salient to nuclear weapons advantage 2 is China US conventional dominance complemented by aggressive nuclear policy risk miscalculation but NFU preserves fireways with Swami 23 Taiwan when to escalate to nuclear provided their robust fireways NFU was a robust firebase Taiwan is a priority for Beijing and is relying on bringing down its nuclear threshold to deter intervention why Chinese activity will fail US retains considerable advantages in times the military assets Taiwan has the strongest EWS air not easily exposed thousands of S-2A 23 wargames the Chinese destroyed Nubia Taiwan only need 15 missiles to innovation also bombard with artillery army had a crossbow defender terrain figure out supply underwater America's out of pick lines PLAs interceptable neighbor to cut the Jack nuclear breach by China but directly impact strategic stability misperception result in a nuclear exchange to prevent such was to resolve the crisis without force and have confidence the other share restrained if that fails ability moving neither side would use the nuke first doctrinal and public support for first use shade Chinese perception of conventional weapons failure to restrain ensures escalation heating 25 between US and China nukes play greater greater role than ever in security tells that China may view its modernization as defensive as legit sharp U.S. response, with U.S. preparing for conflict, but seems to be the other's hostile conventional competition, affect nuclear perception, and be mutually reinforcing shifts in conventional produced nuclear compensation of its saviors, unable to protect allies and may seek limited nukes. Conventional modernization may degrade nukes and exacerbate security by creating pressure, expand nukes. One state's conventional defense may threaten another, lead to setting off an action-reaction dynamic. NPRs focus on China as a competitor, convince Chinese experts U.S. wields lower U.S. weapons to maintain dominance and service. No to Colby claims rather than excluding first use. Washington should emphasize that beliefs such reflect the shift in U.S. that can generate concerns in China about U.S. nuclear first use risk of an incident is rising given tensions in the SES. DoD recognized Chinese worries like the intel community. U.S. promote nuclear war. Nuclear belligerence change relations, reversing core stalls, broader co-op done. 18 efforts to put in place U.S.-China restraint as part of a redefined nuclear agenda, tempering competition, intensified competition, and reliance on nuclear deterrence make it difficult to manage other aspects of the relationship. Reliance on deterrence reinforce worst-case strategic thinking, result divert resources needed to gain China's co-op to meet global challenges. Failures existential. Horton 23 postponement of Blinken's visit will be a further erosion of trust. Temptation for West to turn away, even to isolate is influencing co-op. Reducing would be a profound wound we must resist to manage climate change, pandemics, and tech. Countries need a reframing of China's relationship essential to avoid planetary catastrophes. Great test will be to judge when to compete and cooperate. As is catastrophic warning. Clear 21. Warming and existential threat must be limited to 1.5 degrees. Other countries will have to join America to net zero. Only way to avert catastrophic climate change is to avoid a new Cold War. U.S. and China emissions share combined 46% increase. Hostility ensure competitive search for solution resulting in waste installed dissemination make difficult. Creating pressures on reluctant powers that ensure military stop of funds needed for a green economy. That environmental rhetoric is key to reverse the apathy and mobilize change. Bubbling apocalypticism. Christina Hume with the activism group who perceive risk to be great describe climate change uses apocalyptic a language of such encourage fatalism. We would expect alarmists to be less likely to engage in environmental behavior. Alarmists were more likely to take personal action to reduce emissions and support an aggressive national response, specifically the desire to avert catastrophe encourages pro-environmental behavior. Apocalyptic beliefs motivate lobbying, public info campaigns to shift legislative priorities to move beyond making superficial changes. Narrativization is essential if the message is to be persuasive. Stories encourage action in the real world, even as they invoke an imaginary one. Apocalyptic narrative helps adherents determine how to act by providing a storyline from which they imaginatively sample, allowing them to assess consequences of their actions without the narrative decisions would be mere matters of convenience. Putting info about the environment into that narrative allows apocalyptic to link global environmental processes into their own lives. Without that, people are less likely to act. Interviews critical dialogue wouldn't happen without it. Gerson 15, China's 5-decade history with nukes demonstrated use nukes as a means of preventing use. China's modernization driven by survivability important to be resolved. BMD and CPGS shoulder holding these programs. U.S. must deter China. These are not a threat initiatives involve trust. U.S. can encourage China's participation by adopting NFU. China's repeatedly called for and believes critical. First step is NFU for the U.S. NFU will meet China's recommendation and pave the way for arms control. Ryan, I'm gonna need more cards. That empowers Chinese moderates to shift the needle internally. It solves modernization and belligerency through restraint. Clocky 21. China waiting for arms control for years, but expansion to nukes will be difficult to stop if it gets further, since motivation for this is to convince the alliance first use will never work. Adopting NFU policy give Chinese diplomats the hand they need in internal debates over the future of nuclear policy. U.S. paper tiger had a profound and lasting impact on perception of nukes. Truman threatened nukes in Korea. Eisenhower threatened TNWs. The NFU initiate current strategy and replace it with original intent would open the door to meaningful arms control. For 20 years, analysts held talks throughout China press on NFU remains important to China. Expression of intent benchmark for assessing U.S. without NFU. Chinese government is unlikely to discuss offensive buildup as a symptom of bureaucratic creep. Intervention by leadership for forces course. Talking about them. 19. While Chinese leaders determine military trajectory, detailed structure emerges from bureaucracy. Chinese leaders can intervene. However, when leaders do not, then processes manifest an incremental improvement. Today's leaders appear less involved, opening the door to bureaucratic actor service. Rivalries provide pressure for more diverse capabilities and necessities. More PLA services compete for resources unless leaders exercise self-discipline. PLAs likely to develop for strikes, exacerbate security dilemmas. Maintaining minimal deterrent require effort by leaders to lean against modernization. Domestic influences on U.S. and Chinese policymaking are mutually reinforcing. Ryan's gonna send these parts out. Can you read that bad one for me? I love you so much. There you go. Ontology and meta-ethics are red herrings in 1920. Reimagining ontologies and agency are necessary. Political actions, knowledge is performative. The ways we imagine shapes what's politically possible or practical. Processes, assumption, and responsibility for contextual assessments of outcomes of our initiatives rather than reasoning must constitute basis for decision. Intention do not constitute sufficient ways for validating political action. Humans take part in processes of modifying the unfolding of a universe and end goals are not already set in a master plan. Research is not an ontologically divided subject opposed to lower instincts, but humans inhabit the world as agents. Ethics is rooted in human finitude. Central criterion for adjudication of action is rooted in assessments of its consequences and history is not determined by structural determinism. Past produces cascade effects that is not oriented towards the end goal but obtains in specific circumstances must be assessed to devise needs. Practices are not residual or theories entanglements which occur within processes that are not limited to knowledge and aspirations. Ontological reimagination sees as part of a community versus to discourses we are ontologically entangled. First, the object to be defended is the universe. Quantum offers ontological imaginary, affirms decolonial positions. Bunks assumptions of how the world is that constitute the starting point of ethics consideration, essential for suggesting prudence rather than bombastic political statements that avoid advocate rejection of existing social structures that simplify solutions, complex problems, Kantian abstractions, subtle transformation, and harbor totalitarianism, valid justifications grounded within careful analysis of the particular. Okay, I'm just gonna Control Z. I marked it at the particular. Let me sit down and then I will read.
Yeah.
Let me sit down, then I'll be there for a process. Okay. I'm ready. Whenever.
That's actually part of the back, by the way.
Okay, yeah, sorry, let me just pull that up.
Okay. Fine. Yeah, the Wi-Fi in this particular building is less than ideal.
Okay. Everybody good for cross? What does the 1AC do for Palestine?
The 1AC has made several arguments that say that extinction equitably affects all individuals. For example, catastrophic warming allows the United States to create things like states of exception, which inevitably leads to abuses of human rights, etc.
So how does the 1AC prevent the state of exception post-AF?
So our argument is that the way that that occurs is twofold. First, the process of extinction, which I just kind of talked about, and the second...
Wait, so preventing extinction means the state of exception in the status quo goes away?
So, like I said, there's a second part of that answer.
Okay.
One of the ways that it is enacted, i.e. the process by which empire occurs, is for belligerent first-use policies. The Heim and Higginbotham pieces of evidence both say that the affirmative causes like an intellectual shift in the military-industrial complex by removing the ability for the U.S. to first strike other countries, which is the way that we have said like empire operates.
Okay, so you think that, you know, belligerency, foregrounding empire kind of makes sense to me. I guess like my question is, you know, this card that was sent out, you know, says we are all ontologically entangled. In terms of that, what does that mean in terms of like non-existential impacts that are currently occurring for marginalized people? How does the 1AC prevent those if you're ontologically entangled with said marginalized people?
So I think the Zanotti piece of evidence is making a couple claims. The first of those claims is that ontology creates this idea that like social groups are calcified into one like category, i.e. the ability to be or to not be socially dead. But the argument about structural violence is one of the ways that that occurs is the U.S. being able to have unfettered control, i.e. threaten other countries and coerce them, strong arm them, whatever phrase you'd like to use, because we will just like nuke the heck out of them.
Okay, so the threat of first use is what drives the coercion, is what you're saying?
Yes, the entire 1AC is just like first use creates destabilizing like conditions, both in the realm of like a catastrophic war between, for example, the US and China, and also coercion largely.
How does NFU solve the climate change thing?
So the Gerson piece of evidence as well as the Clare piece of evidence say that we need a reframing of our relationship with China. The reason why we're not doing this is, quote, nuclear belligerence tanks relations. They refuse to cooperate with us because they view us as belligerent. They view us as like disingenuous in cooperation. And they care about the perception of nuclear weapons or a decapitation strike of like Beijing.
Okay, what does mutual vulnerability look like?
It means that both the US and China maintain things like second strike capabilities, so they would theoretically be quote-unquote like vulnerable to each other, but that creates a scenario by which neither country is willing to escalate because they understand that that has like negative consequences,
Okay.
i.e. the like mutual aspect. I know that. Good, by the way.
If it could be a little slower post 1AC, but
Yeah.
it's fine post 1AC.
Okay. I'm gonna take a photo and just put them You're fine.
Four, then case accidents China.
Come on, if I use this one.
Go for it.
And adjust it however you need. We just like it super high up because we both are not.
Vertically challenged like me.
Yeah, and our like eyesight is not like we have to zoom in to like 400%. It's just really awesome and fun. It came through for me. Let me.
I don't have it. I'll just take it, just pop it aside.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think the gophers are good.
I just shot that. It's pulling it up myself. Load.
Oh, sorry. You are not on the right dock.
Oh, I'm not.
Did we get sent the right dock or is this the wrong dock?
The
You
first
definitely got
thing
sent
is
the correct dock.
Okay.
The one that starts out with like being for or against for.
Yeah.
That's how, okay.
How? I don't understand.
Oh, okay, yeah, sure, yeah. Yeah. That was good. Okay.
Mr. Bobo.
Okay, just to clarify, it's the KCP, PDA, whatever.
For authentication.
Okay, got it. Make sure I got the right file. Thank you, I found it.
Oh, yeah.
Being for or against war as far as war report replaces deterrence with transparent communication. White male that reaffirms the illusion of agency that completes the transparent domination for simulating the globe. Shapiro 14 opposing a war is based on the project of space and the government truth in the making and then make better decisions than anti-war dominance and advantages. We should clarify the politics and putting ourselves in the shoes of the strategic choosing and policy options. This war is not an event and absurd and take stance on non-events and non-wars. It's not mercurial protagonists and non-war. We are viewers. We are hostages dragged into a deterrence. And this binary logic is of yes or no is the discourse of the bomb. The true devastation of the word kept at bay for the perception of the simultaneous technologies. Like this part is cut awkwardly. Work on the truth of images lies the excessiveness of power designated by the itself in abject and pornographic images and integrated into the war. They don't represent it beyond the epistemology of true and false digital image inscribed within itself a tautological reasoning of self-fulfillment and prophecy inheriting and the mastery of the rendering things true. Next, transparent inclusion of information regardless of the content proves their form sets into meaning. March 14, the reflecting of government's attempts to simulate the knowledge of possessed in the state provided the name of transparency. The government released the report of the public consumption argumenting the state's appearance and transparency of the intelligent and IRS WMDs. Power cited industrial argument and Iraq concealing WMD, the report that was the simulation. I had to provide information that justified the war against Iraq. Being pro anti-war is forced in a referendum of binary logic and political rhetoric for against the question of credibility, reality, and plagiarism. Question entire reality justification of the war. How could I be for war if the evidence was manufactured so claimed to be bring freedom? WMDs and pro anti-nuclear war seem futile. If the game is fixed in the point of rooting teams through the motions, there could be no doubt that the winner will contribute to their anti-war position, creating their own simulation and process. The hyper-real reporting of the anti-war simulation by researchers got lost in the re-emergence to another symbol. The second simulation exposing the truth is not reveal the truth. The critique immersion in anti-war simulation is also relevance to the reality of who I was. Hyper-reality overtook the personal background of Iraq American mind stands on the Iraq war too convoluted. And next, the act is complicit in the harmonization of the otherness and simulates extending the dominance through inclusion. Northern 14, a preemption of the wars in harmony and peacefulness. Soft power simulation extending the American dominance war on terror and roll up to the Sino-Afghan border and beyond. The Chinese state joined American forces and American reinstated hegemony and American American war, terror, and Chinese government responding to We Are You, and China shifted from being a reluctant participant in peacemaking to a member contributes to the most of the police training Afghanistan security forces. China emerged and biggest beneficiaries occupation and biggest winners of oil contracts to Iraq and Chinese state and benefit in particular or participation and legitimize China harsh and clamp down the terrorist Muslim Uyghur community and participation in China responsible for power measured in the standard of international society to tie China more to the American-led lead. As challengers, China more portrayed other more than Western order, other than the official rhetoric, focus on the preemption of the cultural peacefulness and prior to relations. Political levels and homogenous to create harmonious systems with conversation should happen through the voluntariness rather than the colonialism, and this understanding of attainable only through the elite who will archive the homogeneity through the submissions of preventions of war is imagined, and we see the participation of Western non-war through the war on terror, but also denies the space for imagining other and China's neighbors their voice and concerns with the growing military capacity of Chinese non-war is no less frightening than war real or virtual. Next, the alternative is to sacralize the West, performing radical mimicry of the established communicative forms moving to collapse. Paul 14. Interrogating the system suffers a dissident from inside the global violence imminent in the system itself and within such pure symbolic challenges against it. The nuclear war does not result in peace, but proliferation of conflicts, fractionalization of war and conflicts into everyday terror. All theories are complicit with the systems of this critique, even more damaging critique, integral of the system, and criticize itself, displacing attempts at academic critique, a complicitly level of form of system, and belief, consent, allegiance, and conscience, and complicitly seen by critiques of the acceptance of consumerism, but is not reductive. That we rejoicing inwardly when it suffers reversals that operate in dual mode. Carnalization and cannibalization are dual and global systems absorbs the otherness and reproducing the carnal marketable difference, and cannibalization emerges hidden from complicity in West where there is deeper rejection, allegiance, superficial mimicry, and involves the exorcism of systems, which mimicry reveals the superficiality of Western models and Western desacralization of power challenges. There is no sovereign because the structure of power has been internalized. Next, the counter plan is that America and allies should surrender its nuclear arsenal to black and brown communities of the world. Global nuclear proliferation is one of the breaking of the Western nuclear monopoly and fundamentally alters the balance of power and prevents colonial interventions. Shelter 18. The no nation nuclear is innovated and nuclear weapons are revolutionary notions in themselves, and the U.S. overthrow the Saddam and give news help overthrow graffiti and requires ruling class in the skin and game and at least no longer sacrifice for risking of the Iraq and bin possessions of new U.S. would never be evaded. The division of warfare and arbitrary and unfair. U.S. would be uncontested military dominance in the world. Nuclear would be weak and the nation deprives. Next off. From the river to the sea, refuse the endorsement of state during the genocide of Palestine. Valdivieso 24 embodied the organization spirit of daily spirits and the Palestinian cause most viewed in the social relations of breeding grounds and awareness and action. Organizing media surroundings, ensuring no stones goes unturned, and publicizing one's support for Palestine, establishing the accurate conception of individualized stance, and bright points in agitation, including intersection issues of co-opted queer liberatory rhetoric. Organizing conversations can begin. Group and consciousness will gradually increase. Collective action will form. It creates a social political infrastructure through which we can wield collective action for Palestine and any other issue. Next off. The one is hegemonic anti-nuclearism that justifies the conventional shifts to incremental denuclearization, Ritchie 22. The frames the effective denuclearization as shifting relationship through the insider engagement on policy relevance and reproducing the premise of denuclearization and involves the substitution of nuclear weapons with the other strategic weapons not on the case. Accidents. The accidents risk of calculated through the Serb Empire justifies warfare and product of technical terror, Feldman 17. The accident is the apparatus of calculability. Hegemony is described as a task of making accidents unlikely that requires vigilance managed and instrumentalized. The pursuit of perfection. The accident is the project of war on terror. There is no pure uncontaminated accident. The pursuit of accidentalism, speaking mournfully, CNN and Gaza, civilians killed Israel missiles and strikes. Each Israel missile is subject to mishap and refunctioning in Hamas and committed to mechanical mass production of Palestinian dead and the true violence in Gaza and cast in the self-enclosure and Palestinian value politics. The accidentalization of war is not war is accidental or mishap, but rather this destined reputation. And war is miscalc is a myth. Shape 23. There has been a few accidents and none led to escalation in case studies and no corroborating example. The exhausting study did not turn up the single case. In Berlin, Cuban, or in the Hungarian uprising, the U.S. and Soviet Union reached settlements and conceded to avoid war. States choose to de-escalate and no automatic ratchet to escalation. In China says no, there are arms control as a as a trap. Him 21. The views of Chinese strategic community provided little ground for optimism. Chinese strategies do not view arms control as an effort to improve stability and trap the design to lock in nuclear security, undermine China deterrent, and to moral high ground and skepticism, hardened analysis, arms control, and intensifying struggle. U.S. efforts risk likely fail, and non-nuclear weapons drive Chinese fears. Bugles 23. The views of risk from U.S. Breakthroughs. China's main concerns include rapid advances in missile defenses, hypersonic space surveillance, and conventional strike to cyber. Next, the empiric disproves solvency. Kosovo 21. 4 cases states adopted in the NFU, Soviet nuclear, Indian nuclear, Chinese nuclear, and the Soviet chemical, and the benefits were entirely absent of the NFU. Had perfect record of failure. This greatest obstacle. The target audience never believed it. Next, the crisis control justifies imperial meddling and for its lesser evil, framing the nationalization of the global police state. Pascaloni 18. Rhetorical calculation justify imperial meddling and post-colonies and benevolent leadership, lesser evil reasoning. It requires the constant policing of the world and relativity of evils and state apparatus presume inevitably necessary. Military presence and calculated to produce the best of all worlds. The logic lesser of evil permits the unethical action support of the nuclear war in the U.S. government and exaggerate threats, excuse utility, risk of calculus, and justify violation of existential threat and conjured to Bush, made a surveillance interrogation palatable of the construction of singular existential threat of Western humanity, justified extended, heightened U.S. military presence and police power, and sovereign is granted authority and to suspend the confront emergency when the crisis spans decades and the state exception becomes the norm. Next, no one would trust a policy that would reverse overnight. Harvey 19. China's NFU now cause U.S. to moderate own posture, and few states will risk security on declaratory policy reverse overnight. Huge credibility problem, and president unlikely to feel bound to the crisis is willing to break a promise. Alright, I didn't get to the how Kosovo 21 in the U.S. could easily backtrack. Can you stop? And then I also didn't get to the diaconisa 18. Risk of miscalc close to 0.
Okay.
So you didn't read anything below
Yeah,
that?
basically anything below, yeah.
Okay. Let me know whenever you're ready for cross-examination.
Alright, I'm open.
Okay. The Pollitt piece of evidence, what does it mean to desacralize the West?
Our argument is to refuse the idea that the West can just redeem itself through savior narratives that position the 1AC as a sort of transcendence of the state of exception, or the idea that the US will just stop being belligerent in international policy. And it's also a defense of things like mimicry, which is how we, in the heart of the empire, can sort of like demythologize the Western narrative of transcendence and like, you know.
Okay, so if it's demythologized, does this make a spillover claim that we change the perceptions or like the mindsets of like the military-industrial complex? Is it just a rejection of the affirmative? Can it ever result in the affirmative?
First question, I'm gonna say no because that loses to perm double bind. But even if there's no big mindset shift or paradigm shift, it certainly can change the way we here orient ourselves towards understanding the 1AC's narrative construction.
I'm sorry, when you say we here, you mean all of us in this room?
Yeah.
Okay.
And also just on the level of policymaking and, you know, people within the US, I think it does make a broader, you know, maybe this is ostensibly spill up, but it does make the claim that, you know, within the heart of empire, we should be committed to kind of like refusing, you know, just to accept Western values and internalize those as the process of decision making, if that makes sense.
Okay, so I guess I have a question about this like mindset shift. Can you walk me through how, if these 3 distinguished judges voting negative will change Ryan and I's mindset about nuclear no first use policies?
Oh, no. It's not ballot changes AF minds. It's ballot is a referendum on debate that happened, but that the solvency of the alternative is, like, again, it is not, well, I'm pretty sure I answered the question by saying it's not a mindset shift. It's just ostensibly this form of action or orientation would be desirable, which is what voting neg would say.
Okay, so does it have like, is there like a material example of this, or is it exclusively
Yeah,
like...
it's like, I think it lists like burning down cop cars, sorry, let me pull up the evidence.
Okay. So these, I guess, the like burning down cop cars examples, this seems to be a way that the state could be reactionary vis-a-vis the uniqueness claim that you have posited, which probably causes crackdown. So can you explain how forwarding that type of analysis can be beneficial or productive?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not scared of a crackdown's DA.
What?
I'm not scared of a crackdown to D8. You said your question was just, oh, crackdowns. Okay, we'll take you up on that debate.
Okay, why? Like, why is a crackdown good?
I mean,
Why
first
am I
off,
afraid of
the
it?
alt is not a revolution. It is from within the heart of the empire, and Pollitt specifically says that, to refuse the West from within, is about accepting that we are complicit here with the system, but then, move towards slowing down and making the West suffers,
Okay. 10.
You got
Basically, I didn't really
you read,
but yes.
you read that.
If I stop right there.
Great. People interested in this. No, they said that's what would happen if we did the alt.
I'm gonna give you these because permutation to the alt. It's just you have,
That's what you said. Let's take it on that. That makes sense.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay. 818. I'm gonna put it in the email chain. Where is it? Let me in. We said 18 left.
One sec.
Oh,
No,
I just realized
no,
that
no,
was in here.
Right, it's done.
Do what you doing. My bad.
818. Oh, you said, okay.
What was that? 8 what?
818.
They-
I put
they
it
sent
in
it.
the email chain.
I know, I'm just never at that.
Look, I always have to cover my bases because
I know.
Adrian Rivera yelled at me and I got scared.
Because you didn't send prep in the email chain.
No, because I was like a couple seconds off. I was like a freshman. I don't know. I just got scared.
Yeah.
She's so scary. Not kind of, she is. She judged us round 1. And I was like,
Did you win? Did you win?
Yeah.
Okay, well that's good.
I don't know. She gave me 20 minutes. Yeah, right? I know.
Wait, Adrian gave you a 20?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, you can't prep.
Like that's just me.
Okay. Are you at least ready for an order? I know you probably don't have the doc quite yet, but
It just came through from me, but I don't have
oh my gosh, that's really slow. Okay.
I actually got it like 2 minutes ago.
Oh, okay, sweet. The order is gonna be accident, China, the counterplan. You had it in there as a P procedural, so that's what I'm going with.
Facts.
Okay. Conventional shift.
Facts.
Okay.
Yep.
There's like no bar in here.
I was so annoyed we hit Georgetown with it and they were like, it's a new K, and I was like,
I also
Yeah,
sent
I know.
2 things in the email chain. Like in the body. if
Did I
you
not
want me
say
to
something?
put it- No, it's stuff that I did.
Okay.
It's
whatever.
already in the thing that I sent you.
Okay. Sure.
oh yeah, okay.
Are people ready?
Yeah, sorry, can you say the order one more time?
Accident, China, the counterclaim, key procedural, conventional shift, the K. Let me know how speed is going for you. Just like yell slow.
Yeah, literally like 10% slower than the one I see is fine.
Okay. I have a hard time judging it, so if I'm
Yeah, I get it. I'll
going
just
too
be
fast,
like
just
slow.
let me know.
Please. But yeah, that's all.
okay, cool.
We also sent analytics to make it.
Yeah, I get you.
Is everyone good? Yes. 1 and T1, yes, accidents to your tech makes it more dangerous and likely ambulance perceives that the also false launches as Falcon and Landon, yes, so 1 and T2, yes, Miss Falcon cascades has a visual modernization which means that you can't understand it. Also, Paracon is a voter and justice leniency on the Perp Shake 23 senior the director of foreign and defense policy studies of American Enterprise Institute, and on the China, or do you want this on accents to China? Or actually go to China, it's fine. 1 and T1 on the no trap, they don't see this as a trap, that's the status quo. We reverse perceptions because nuclear weapons that way. 1 and C2, yes, no Chinese revisionism, nuclear threats overwhelm other concerns, make them feel vulnerable. It's magnified by modernization and doctrinal shade echoed in decades of tradition as a talus and evidence. You should prefer it to historical reading. 1 and C3, the plan is credible. 1, politics, Chinese moderacy, the rhetorical advantage within the internal demands, adoption of U.S. view. CC change that disproves pessimistic voices in the CCP that's lucky and Kirsten evidence. 2, operational changes. The plan is verifiable and clear, drawn on the relevant virtues, watchers will be easily seen and inspire confidence. Residual capabilities are insufficient to overpower the complete about piece of the plan that's Animal, him, Feld, and Campbell evidence, and it's guaranteed by follow-on dialogue, Van Dyke 23 dialogue, and issued by the child. Any so far as transparency, build confidence, that's gender, group understanding, escalation, is building, reinforce the duty to couple the studio, who outlines gaining clear converging understanding why true, and power as the nucleotides on the meddling link. 1 and T4 no link and turn Richie 14 and the view and viewers can operate these mix with consent and use additional allowance doctrinal dustman and dimensional legitimacy acceptance and normalization when you begin to change conceptions way the administration digital world reduce the world become reduce the first essential steps to adopt and view no weapon consider legitimate are eliminated. And 1 and T5 the plan is credible. Did that above the counter plan?
Actually, no. Go back to the accidents advantage.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Go back to the accidents advantage. No, accidents link is an indictment of AI integration. It does not absolve the military responsibility. It just says that it's bad and that we should resolve it. To counter plan 1, firm do both. 2, eliminate first strike posture for surrounding weapons. Use to posture black and brown countries of the world. 3, cancel all surrounding causes backlash from white nationalism and military industrial complex that creates violent preemption classes. VTL 4 will impact target parallel cascades and destabilize as well. Low cost 22 more weapons and more increases the odds that these will be used to transfer responsible because of nature and enemies and mineral weight on nuclear aggression common with the countries ready to develop regional larger conflicts. First, use incentives 15. Even before United States last second strike, I believe it has the incentive to be used first. Even if knowledge of transmission special beliefs still guaranteed by features, even though limited work aims for breakmanship or breakship and increase the risk of scholars and documented historical accidents as well. Also increases new terror, other states of less experience with nuclear diplomacy, any crisis will result in shall be exchange 5 against all colonials and elites will prevent 6. Congress back, Constitution, China, Stratsky, voted for education, digital solves the P procedural. 1, classified framework from the KL, read it and dissect the role of the app is to present a topical plan and the role of the negative to disprove its desirability. 2, reject non-resolutional theory, arbitrary, unpredictable, and enforces back open to jump through hoops to get to the app. 3, reasonability, anything else causes substance crowd out that's key to discuss various solutions to violence. 4, leads to performative activism. How does Minnesota DP saying free about Palestine materially help Palestinians causes passivity and makes us feel like we did something when we didn't. 5, competitive, first any ethical value per. We should all advocate for Palestine. Black making it a condition of competition incentivizes bad faith engagement with Palestine. 6, the first uses of force field that dictates terms of any successful revolution. Papers maybe to every revolution has taken place of force field, which defines the term for the composition of the American deterrence of possible non-presidential constitution. But I have the precondition for the reconstruction of imperialism in the Middle East are primary, but by no means exclusive function of all Western to regulate the parameters of anti-colonial votes. First use of gentile representative for understanding the underlying logic or in the range of those happening. It's a double term of the past says focus on liberation and land is bad, and have Palestinian subjectivity still anti-black curve context. The reason for reject the team holding black women to double standards, and it turns their framework argues that they'll read a Palestinian liberation and combating climate change are intertwined, forming one in favor of the other only amplifies their impacts. Bashiri 10, black Palestinian liberation and climate justice are becoming their policy as well as tangible consequences of Palestinians and being subjected to increasing oppression by the hands of Israel, while also promoting climate disaster. Even Mediterranean is one of the climate vulnerable places temperature rising with far-facing consequences. Go down to the K, or I'm sorry, go down to conventional shift. 1, we've already advanced conventional arms, especially China versus someone to get the belligerent try or die to convince China to build up a Cecil. That's a Goswami evidence. 2, this is not causing leaders to do it. There's no link. It's simply just saying that we should have an NDT that doesn't actually cause leaders to suddenly want to rearm. 3, conventional rearm is inevitable. Martin age of 13 policy shift in intellectual officer military taking the guidance of action, but that discipline goes like guidance one is own to a need simply because they need to mission for weapons. They already have debate on future arms circumstances conducting against backshot repair document theories and doesn't need that debate would change. 3, actually, I guess 3, and abuse also root of arms build on parallel arms control checks any access and scarcity until the 18 and 3 will allow and even searching aims security for results in the revenue modernize arsenal loan security and armors. Inconventional might be the case in the short term, however, only the last of December will help and secure relations against by parallel arms control. Go to the K. Framework, the necklace for the plan's material consequences are bad. 1. Fairness, anything else just plays unpredictable gateway issues that move the 1AC. 2. Clash with the controlling internal link to education they replace engagement with arbitrary backnesses. 3. We solve their offense and get the case so long as they see they can have impacts. B is way the after their enter the only way to evaluate Brexit to appeal the consequences, which includes the plan and extinction that ways death is an objective evil equate to the all. If you're dead, consequential ensures medical ethical abuse, killing everyone for the sake of ethics is the same logic as the gulags and permanently better than if you create for or real advocacy, mobilization, tangible 20 interviews, giving to Christian call also like arms and raise encourage taking the free letters pieces of history for casters organizing political coalition while free except for that movement was successful putting pressure on Congress like 17 movement and civil activism the agent is coalition public support does not minority take part in activism and support like just the importance of education on these issues managing the pressure on government they don't bomber just companies stop finance 60 actions of mobilizing anti-nuclear activism that can be pressure on government reducing negative dangers and ontologies of residual content concepts instead of focusing on yes or no ontological questions we should focus on material solutions as it's an audio evidence that you should not evaluate ontology the porno tripping link one it's about use political imaginations based on entangled and imperfect empathy to construct more ethical relations. Gruen 17 psychological literature is replete with the discussions about the for helping action to over moral perceptions. Need to actively have the truth of the situation agency being moved to entangled intention are part of the process of developing moral perception why people can harness their basis and perhaps empathy is who help optimistic I ask well reason why karaoke empathy is problematic and requires social depth and empathy is on the surface of anti-practice but I'm not sure why I say it needs to be tried to understand is not the same as achieving full understanding of the margin happens to looking through complicated processes and situations of differential power and use the idea that we cannot use excuse out to the agency there's no place and every relations anti-practice as well as abuse but I say it's just regarding Let's record it regarding. There are two theories, totalizing and wrong. Luke 91, the tenacity of reality, understands of reality, but nature falls mistaking him, full of incipient developments, are running intent, transversal, full of order, completely fixed unit, social order, total, order break with past forms of socialization, cannot be verified by the drug case, so the image of powerful system measures, their average hyperconformity, decidable, Alan Jones, my nations, he does not advance with any new conception of postmodern justice of a drug, and to be charged with the brushes and conservatism, but your attention misplaces, concrete, social substance, complex matrices, power, production, sense, and economy into one universal force, never demonstrates definitely how this all works, but your fabricates is under narrative time, the operation with the side, but your system impulsively leaves history to get productive as minute into its true history of reality, but your uncomfortably sensitive, not to be simple, conscious, 26 years political books are all still need to be defined much more closely, and all the simulations, like it's not all simulated, Bradford, staff, and budgets, and really defined over generalizing emphasis and also feels something on the American styles and the real participants in the public world, not very much occupied by saying message for non-interaction. Nobody's skeptical of our causing the street. Also, they link back to it because they read like a bad government person. Also, I already read that, so cross by the Luke, and simulation is never absolute, nor is 32 hours. That's what you're to start the diagnostician is on arguments and observing which is the outcome change can be read determinable indifference to the extent we are reliant on textual evidence is hard to escape this legal conclusion on one hand we are but part of the images on the other becomes apparent to anyone who should compare evidence of this decided overload for faculties, yeah, but your cases absurd conclusion when we cannot whether the words working out this only follows if one says the premise of reality is just whatever we make it reject the premises but what are the whole line of arguments that we collapse to finish from running a view but the contrast difference between war and city and war is a real world state of affairs in the all fails a competitive international arena trying to save behavior deterrence and cooperation are two sides of the same coin that all fails and forecloses both real 14 with the assumption of humans are wrongly better there would be fewer wars false but that's the international system that takes which made not only relevant actors and I have to be fair more secondary security and strong leaders cooperate not level but the structural states call for victim wars like a continue leaders become less egoistic and power seeking. I will send these out here.
Here, I have something for you.
You do?
Yeah.
Okay. What do you have? Oh,
This is on the alt.
Yeah, this is on the alt. War cannot be reduced to a simulation. The alternative ignores real world determinants of warfare and guarantees escalating military interventions. Hobbes 6 mentored did not help understand the Gulf War because it reduces conflict issue to simulation and raising its concrete determinacy suffers from deterministic essentialism. There are observable institutions and practices reducing semiotic interplay and illusions are not an end for analysis of tacticals are dissected by critical analysis. Recontextualization is possible. Narratives can be traced back to governments and biases in the veracity of community tests or can be connected to antecedents and consequences searching for critically informed explanations and correct MDA. They will be afraid if not material then it fails. Also, bagels are bad, causes late breaking debate, justifies new one. Our answers and utopian feelings are good or not real world causes, not real world causes like us to figure ourselves and not. Causes us to figure ourselves better for revolutionary potential. Pigs are bad, causes, or I don't know, personal plan is a good idea. Also, justifies pervy the app and the alt, pervy the app and the alt, pervy both. Anything else? Okay.
2AC stuff's done. With the analytic.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Just a little maybe.
I'm good.
I'll start on the first question. Why is resistance bad?
mean, we're not saying resistance bad. I don't really know where you're getting that from.
The crackdown.
From the cross-examination, we were talking about crackdowns, so I just want to understand why is resistance bad in the context of the 1AC.
So the 1AC doesn't say that like resistance is bad. Rather, it takes the idea and recognizes that one, things like NFU are key in order to get to incremental thing. It's an incremental step to get to things like disarm. Realism structures everything. So when you look,
Realism structures everything. Okay, so what is real?
so are you asking like what is realism?
Sure, what is realism?
I mean, right? It's a political theory that determines how states like function.
As far as violence goes, a black man with a foot on his neck for 9 minutes, is that considered physical?
I guess I don't really understand.
Is that considered physical? I mean, it's literally straight to the point. Like, there's no contextualization at all. Is that considered physical?
Like,
yes or no?
yes.
Okay.
I guess I'm a
A
little
black
bit,
woman killing herself in a jail cell, is that considered physical?
yes.
Okay. Children in Gaza being killed by just residing in their hospital, is that considered physical?
Mm-hmm.
So how is the negatives critique not a form of addressing material things, is what I'm getting at.
I guess, are you asking about ontology? Are you asking about the alt? Like, I'm a little bit confused.
Sure, we could talk about ontology. Like, how is that not like a form of like ontological like devastations that have been like conceptualized to material like format?
Sure, you've conceded that we should not be evaluating ontology because it is a residual content concept. We talked about this during the last cross-ex that says, yes, we are ontologically related, but instead of focusing on yes or no ontological questions, we need to be focusing on material solutions, right? This
But
is
the
also
things
the
that I
stuff-
just listed off, you just admitted that they
Okay,
were considered physical, and if the 1NC is talking about these
Sure.
physical things, how is that not physical?
Okay, this is performative activism. We talk about things like us saying free Palestine does jack shit to help people in Palestine.
That's not all the 1NC is talking about, but sure, if you want to pathologize,
Also,
that's
we've
just
made
that.
the argument
Next
that you
question,
cannot
how do
change
you
the
invoke
sensitivities.
imagination?
In terms of what? I mean, like, yeah, right? Like, we think the app happens.
Why is white imagination good?
I'm not white, so I don't appreciate that.
Oh
and
no,
that
I
makes
wasn't
sense.
assuming that you were white. I'm talking about your argument through the practice of your actor, your agent, the United States federal government, and disarming of nukes. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to talk
We're not
about
disarmed.
you. I'm talking about the 1AC through your actor of the United States federal government. Can we
We
address
think
that?
that the app functions as a way to take down the government with inside. We talked about
Take away the government from the inside
Take
through
down-
imagination.
Right.
Why is white imagination good? That proceeds to my question that I just
Okay,
originally
so I
asked
think the way
you.
that you're phrasing this is incorrect. Me reading this affirmative, and anyone really reading this affirmative, the tandem-weld evidence is really good on this. It talks about the fact that learning about NFU and nuclear policy generally is a great way to get people involved to be able to take it down.
Okay, I'm literally just taking prep to ask questions. I already have the 2NC ready. Reasons to reject the team is just perf cons because we read case cards that are citing the authors.
Mhm.
And then we didn't read pessimism, so what's the perf con on Palestine? We didn't read Afro-pessimism, what's the perf con on Palestine?
Let me look. Whatever, I mean, PerfCon will go as a reason to reject the team, just generally. Condo, picks, big alts.
Condo.
That's where
I would- But I was wondering, what's the link? You said perf con on Palestine because, like, Afro-pess. So
Okay.
can we just scratch that?
Sure, we'll still make the PerfCon
Okay.
argument
Yeah,
though,
because
on
of the case
other.
argument,
Yeah.
because, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. 30 seconds.
There were more reasons. I don't know if you want to keep going, that's up to you.
Oh, there were more perf con reasons?
No, just more theoretical reasons.
Okay, yeah, do you want to take that?
You're good.
Yeah.
Okay, big alts, utopian fiat.
Okay, yeah, sorry,
Yeah.
I got those.
Okay.
You give me a sec. Condo picks vague all utopian fiat. That's it.
Condo pegs, utopian fiat.
You perf
Big
con.
alt. Sorry.
Yeah, vague utopian. I think that's the only alt tier you have. 'Cause-
We'll
Yeah.
stick you to that. If
Yeah.
I did something else and I forgot, that's my fault. So
Cool.
that's all. That's fine.
All right, that was a minute. So 9 minutes left. It is going to be briefly the conventional shift DA, and then the critique overview. If you are the type to flow on paper, that would behoove you
So get another sheet.
include an additional sheet or spreadsheet would to get another column slash.
So you said shift and then the criticism?
If you are flowing on Excel, I would have 9 cells added to the top.
Is there a document?
No doc.
I need to flood my laptop. The golfers are ready.
What?
The golfers.
The go-
Yeah, I heard that the first one.
Look, I've been in Minnesota. Cool golfers, I guess.
Yeah, I get you. Okay. Con shift, critique overview, and then line by line. I will actually follow 2AC order effectively, I promise. Okay, everybody good? Conceding it's inevitable in the quo means that we get to win that the US will continually militarize in the status quo and you do not transcend the state of exception, which means that we will massively win the link on the overview because the US will keep doing it. Critique. And if you declaratory policy feeds in the simulation of being against war that positions the U.S. as the protagonist of non-war, feeding into the binary of being for or against war, or for or against the state of exception, reifies the production of ongoing violence against the periphery. The idea of declaring an NFU would change anything about the military-industrial complex or the state of exception is a facade that masks the illusion of power that creates genocide in the periphery. The 2AC has conceded our central framing argument about China cooperation being bad, which is the Northern link that is well warranted and has no offense in the 2AC because the offense, the case defense arguments are not answers to that, and they didn't even properly extend the reasons why cooperation with China solves any of their impacts. U.S. posturing NFU to China is bad. It dissuades them and licenses them to hegemonic control, which supercharges U.S.-Chinese inter-imperial global social control. There's a massive external impact well warranted within North. The war on terror within Central Asia to increase Chinese influence, legitimize harsh clampdowns in Xinjiang, which also turns their arguments about climate change because China will also engage in economic cooperation with Africa. You have to realize most Congolese exports about cobalt mining go to China, and China has actively set up corporations like Psychomine that have made massive deals with Congolese mining companies, which are the reasons that extraction is happening right now and genocide is happening right now in Congo, which means that the US and China cooperating does not prevent the state of exception, but instead forwards it into the future, which means that extraction will be forwarded to a new level post-act because they have conceded the link in cross-X. Look, in order to be like NFU does not have cooperation, every single app I have hit and made some sort of co-op with China argument analytically has said no, NFU doesn't cause co-op. They cannot make that argument because of 1AC cross-X. Now, any argument as to why they defend cooperation relies on negative peace, which is bad. You should refuse to separate the tide towards preventing miscalc because everything is perception-based. Their logics of the NFU is the U.S. semiotically intervening in a sign economy, which is literally international signaling. The idea that this form of international signaling prevents warfare is how policymakers justify negative peace through moving away from understanding that conflict prevention and cooperation are delinked. And now, saying that, the cooperation doesn't increase violence is bad because the logic is how the U.S.-China standoff is kicked down the line, which is what allows for the violence of the president to accelerate into its most fascist overtones. Even if they win that their cooperation does not accelerate violence, our argument is that the logics on a narrative level inculcate China's very drive and logic of Han ethnocentrism to win the culture war against the U.S. undergirding Chinese extermination. And if we get to win our Repson framework, then we will win that we get reciprocal scale for the link. So you should ask yourself, why should you read the app in a way that is forgiving towards however little their signal does, which is bad? Now, the link turns case for 2 reasons. First, entrapment theory conceded that it's bad and that we're all ontologically entangled. Turns this argument and turns security dilemma arguments because they rely on that. Even if they win, they don't have to stick to realism. Distancing from allies and inverse move towards China increases tension, shifting posture the other way. If we win, signs are functionally meaningless. It makes war equally likely, if not more, because China is now licensed to attack other powers because they fear international consequences. Second, non-war. Nor indicates China is actually licensed to grow military capacity, which means recognition of mutual vulnerability greenlights Chinese military expansion by mapping out more and more control for China, which makes aggravation for great powers more likely, i.e. in economic colonialism. Under a U.S.-China alliance, you should assume that Chinese decision-making might switch from economic to militarist, which is how the app creates more violence, i.e. expanding Chinese influence the American way instead of the traditional way, which means that they would adopt more direct militarized efforts. Framework. Our interpretation is that the app is a media artifact. It's floating, meaning a sign that should be interrogated for linguistic investments first and foremost. If we win framework gets us two things. One, impact turns the way they view war. Two, impact turns the way they view IR. Only two basic offense needed. Ibrahim's al-Marani's narratives are conceded. They are co-opted for fueling more power into the American war complex, which is how their form of NFU turns into a form of anti-war activism. The mass believes they can just change the state of exception, like protests against the Iraq War, the biggest in human history, but did not actually change anything whatsoever. 500,000 people were protesting through DC and didn't shit happen. It allowed for the communication circuit to go through where the issue needs people on both sides, so it becomes a controversial subject instead of understanding it as an incomprehensible horror. We don't need the alt if we win framework. Vote to refuse their narrative that asks you to view more and more faith into the political. Winning framework means we challenge to ask political calculations, and means we get links to their justifications. Proving an egg ballot can refuse said justifications without you needing to refuse the plan, and those links can spill up into political horizons. First, app teams need to win that research is good, which they haven't. Two, this is not regular you link you lose because it's about proximity to the app, and they've conceded a link that is proximate. Fairness. One, no reason preserves the game's procedures. The game itself operates as a form of knowledge production for imperial war machine perfection, which is how their rhetoric gets co-opted to serve militarism. Two, unfairness and speed differences, access to coaching, funding gaps, discrepancies in judge evaluation. Their model allows neg shiftiness. Three, our model doesn't destroy chance to win. It forces you to defend ideological presumptions are good. Clash testing. No, their clash of model isn't reflexive. It's a liberal smokescreen that reproduces inherent exclusionary ideals of liberal humanism in the academy and perfects military discussions over how the state should conduct a military policy outside of nuclearism for its own benefit rather than the world's. Two, our model does have clash, having to defend your epistemology first is good engagement without those justifications, can't rationalize act out. Three, their model crushes critical clash, and consequentialism is a bad filter that lets DAS dodge accountability for unethical ideas by leveraging their consequences, which help policymakers justify atrocities like invading Iraq and Afghanistan under the guise of preventing WMDs from being deployed. Now, group fiat orgs, one ballot cannot pass a policy or effectuate policymaking skills, but it does indicate how you delineate arg presented in this round. Two, Syria policy failure. Their model produces spectatorship because fiat blows past intricacies of the political process like filibuster, the way bills get written. Three, and are linked straight turn any of the reasons that they say fiat is good because if it promotes unethical decisions, then the policymaking that comes out will increase militarism in the periphery. Perms, group them, including the ones at the bottom. One, cost-benefit analysis bad. It's a layer over from neoliberal economics to maximize decision-making, so you should reject them. Two, we critique their impact claiming proving mutual exclusivity. Three, either severance or intrinsic severance, and intrinsic perms kill neg clash and neg round forward app shiftiness, and their two at the bottom are adding conditions onto the way in which the alt is enacted, which is obviously intrinsic because it's not within the text of the alternative, and if we win framework, it proves the plan and all can take place on separate planes, which means they can't be logically aligned. Co-option D8, the app is emblematic of semiotic integration governments do, where Hillary Clinton says Pokemon go to the polls to mobilize people in their service in favor of militarism and recreate and supercharge the assimilation of difference. And we turn firm double bind because A, if the plan is substantial enough action, is the reason why it overwhelms inclusion of the alt, and B, if the plan doesn't do anything, vote neg on presumption. The only real effect the app has is an attempt to gain legitimacy through semiotic means that leads the U.S. through a narrative of fostering a new global order of peace and cooperation that services imperial powers. Now, I'll answer Cannon Walt here. And if you actually enshrines the right to self-defense, and all our links about China co-op turns their argument because our argument is the principle of self-defense in IR would be weaponized violently as a form of white self-preservation. The particular move to NFU affirms the long-held colonial standards of we can protect our borders whenever we need to internationally, or that if we deem a nation a threat, then we can still act in defense, because the definition of what makes an organizing structure sovereign is ability to defend its territorial integrity. Linchpin and militarism DA. The 1AC has theorized the threat of first use and belligerency as and nukes as the end-all be-all linchpin of militarism. If you take the roof off, the house will still stay intact. The rhetorical idea affirms the sovereign capacity to wage war up until the point of nukes, because slaughters in periphery is legitimized through the NFU. Our alt is to desacralize the West, resistance within the empire that refuses the lie that we have to be for or against them, and instead refuse it outright. Remember our theorization of annihilation will come below, but and they will say that they conceded that no one will believe anybody mimicking the U.S. and we can win that communication within the round. It can have some sabotage effects. So no vague alt utopian fiat, because we're not fiating a material movement, and which means that there's also no crackdowns link. The perfcon stuff will kick out of the impact defense stuff on case, but we will say that they've conceded large portions of our utility and the accidentalization stuff. Perfcons that are not extended through a block are not a reason to vote neg. Also, we haven't criticized the citing authors. Our argument is about the narrative that they forward. Impact defense does not do that, and obviously impact defense can contest them. It's an even if framing. That means even if we win, the frame of the critique is wrong. Obviously, we can have some impact defense on case that tests the legitimacy of the app. We should not have to sacrifice that in order to actually do that, because all impact defense comes from some authors that are probably within the military, which means that we would have to cite them irregardless. Yeah. Next porn-troping argument. Saying empathy good does not answer this. Sorry, you thought we were going for pessimism, but also will impact turn assimilation. This occurs through the false gift of inclusion to the other, which masks the fact that the other is forced to conform to the tenets of liberal capitalism as a more insidious form of racism. And our argument here is the twin peaks of annihilation and assimilation translates into cannibalism and carnivalization. The charity cannibalism being the inclusion of the other into semiotic circuits creates a positive feedback loop of consumption and suffering, which makes us addicted to the need to have images of violence to mobilize us against this, which turns case because disaster or accidents don't exist, so we have to manufacture it, and they're not real or but human produced, which is why we live in a hyper-real state of deterrence that the app actually extends because wars occur, and then we do it so that we can put them up, and suddenly in the American psyche you can't tell the difference between History Channel documentary films and real war, and so you become addicted to the pleasure of the consumption of others. While hundreds of thousands of people protested in Iraq, they still continued it. Historically true from Vietnam to Iraq. Okay, rest of war porn, theory of power, simulations, realism good will be in the 1 hour. And countdown.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. First question I have, you say that the app is like a media artifact and like linguistic artifact.
Sorry, my computer is like literally glitched when you mind.
That's okay. Just let me know when you're done.
We can pause.
I'm gonna be on it. It is like
Technology. Okay, it's good now.
Okay. I'm just gonna restart so like
Yeah.
okay. I'll give you a sec. Are you good?
Yeah.
Okay. So you say that the app is a media like linguistic artifact. How do we evaluate? Like, what does that mean for evaluating ground?
Yeah, I mean, our argument is twofold. First, we think that the NFU is literally just semiotic. So saying that language doesn't matter in the in international policy doesn't make sense because you've derived offense off of how the NFU semiotically perceives assuages
But, like,
China's.
what is the panel supposed to do with that? Like, why do they care?
It means that language matters. So in cross-ex, when you were like, alt not spelling out, well, we can't only
So,
change people's
what
minds and rounds. That's an
determines-
impact turn to that.
What determines if language is good or bad?
Yeah, so we will make an argument about how semiotics are getting co-opted for certain purposes, and also we think that like the judges should make that determination based on
Okay.
whether they think the link is correct or not, which they will because you're not trying to co-opt that.
What do they get co-opted on? Like, what's the?
Well, our Baudrillard's argument, some of your 2AC theory of power is correct in characterizing it as a strong theory of power, as I would describe it, but we will just win that it is correct because if you resist, you will get assimilated, and if you refuse, you will get annihilated.
Okay, sure. I guess this pornotroping link. What about the app is pornotroping?
Yeah, so again, not pornotroping. It is charity cannibalism, which, yes, I understand the arguments in debate function the same,
Sure.
but it is not empathetic identification with others in the periphery, but that we get addicted to their suffering by trying to mobilize against it. To me, those are two distinct forms. If you think they're the same, make that argument.
Yeah, sure. I like charity cannibal. Like, I get it. I guess my question is what about the app other than just like reading it? It just sounds like a you and you lose type of thing. Like, what about the app specifically is it?
Well, I mean, we've said that you get. Well, okay, it's the state of exception stuff. The idea that
Okay.
you can transcend the state of
Okay,
exception
sure.
requires.
So I guess if we are able to prove app solvency, I guess how does that implicate this?
Framework doesn't allow you to just weigh direct consequences of app solvency because
Okay.
it's an ethical question.
It's-
But
so
also, I would
It's
just
an
like to say,
ethics question, I guess, is like, I guess I'm a little bit confused. So I know it's about linguistics. Is it the ethics of our linguistics?
yeah,
Yes.
sure. But I also just want to say one last thing because I'm going to preempt this for the judges. I understand that we've made some arguments on the Norden link that you might perceive as consequential, but our argument is that issues are the reason the ethical frames of the
Okay,
affirmative are bad,
sure.
like accepting mutual
I
vulnerability
guess
and
so.
Goldilocks,
You
as
say
opposed to wing.
cost-benefit framing is bad. What is the alternative?
Like ethics framing on the narrative and virtues of it.
But it sounds like that just evolves into ethics, good or bad. How is that not cost-benefit analysis?
Yeah, we think that there are ethical determinations that are independent from the consequences of it. I.e., you can say Israeli apartheid is bad for Palestine without mentioning the death of Palestinians because there are independent reasons surveilling populations are bad, even if the surveillance consequences do not result in material bad things. Yeah, they do result in material bad things. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying there are independent reasons why policing populations is bad on epistemic levels that are not consequential based, for sure.
Okay, sure.
I'm gonna take like 30 seconds of prep.
Mm, 100%. Yeah. Yeah. Which one?
This one right here.
All of it.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, we took 1 minute, so we have 8 minutes left.
Was there a draw? No.
I just want to say, like, before I start the speech, I do genuinely apologize
It's
for
okay.
insinuating, like,
No,
I was not
you're
trying to
okay.
say that you were right at all.
It's okay, don't worry.
Okay,
I'm not mad.
seriously.
No, I'm not mad. It's okay.
Yeah, 6 minutes on the clock.
Where to?
The order is,
Am I gonna need a new sheet of paper?
I would say, nah.
No. Okay.
So it's gonna be condo, Palestine, prolif, then case.
Is prolif like the shift? Is the back of the side?
No, that's the counterplan.
Oh, okay.
and then the critique.
And then the carry.
Okay, I'm sorry. You
Can
said
do that
the.
one more time, sorry.
Yeah.
Sure. It's condo, Palestine, prolif, case, then carry.
Okay.
I'll say it one more time.
I think I know.
Alright, judges, y'all straight. Wonderful. I got a 1 thumbs up. If you like, okay. The counter interpretation is that we get 2 conditional advocacies, 1 CP and 1 K. 1 stress Q and times Q are inevitable. We have 9 minutes and the 1 and T conditionality bad does not make sense if we win the impact terms of framework because it means their model of debate is bad and reading the app was violated. If we win that reading the app is violent, then obviously the way that the negative engage doesn't really matter in the world in which you have created violent discourse. Negative flex turns in outweighs their standards. We preserve education and allow for nuanced strategies while letting in-depth testing as read first and last. So it's key to actually testing the app from multiple angles and their tear to a C block literally has no warrant for why it's bad. So we give new to in our arguments if they blow this up in the 1 year because it's just it just says it's bad. And on to Palestine, concede perm is just a test of composition. No perf con. We didn't read pessimism. And on to prolif, concede perm, and I didn't assault prolif. No offense on this page. Not in the case, Israel justifies war under the same frame of miscalculation and uses the same Hamas is just one of the fires and a missile on purpose, but Israel is the one who fires them on accident, and therefore they are able to control and perceptual legitimacy of the nation state, which is how their miscalculation represents spill up into a form of international managerialism. And there is no such thing as a true accidental war. Their frame just creates the understanding that wars can just their own accident, that attempts to control in the ways in which warfare can be started, in which turns case because it transformed the U.S. into a new state and exception. The art is that their rhetorical framing of miscalculation supercharges this. Think about the Israel can influence the New York Times and say Hamas commits intentional violence while overlooking IDF members faulting the Palestinian women's undergarments on social media. They violated just framing this them as some bad apples or unfortunate mishaps. NFU is the telos of former accident management and temporal crisis control dictating who gets assigned responsibility by the USA. They can't be answered unless norms clarification serve as a pretext for boosting their sovereign legitimacy, i.e. Why this leak turns case because the framing war through miscalculation abuse the persuasive pleasure from intentional war. America's desire to be an international policeman pushes accidents as the boogeyman to always securitize all. And also they call their claim verbatim Goldilocks solution and the rhetoric of accidents itself contributes to why which is exactly how they are able to create form of international cooperation that creates violence. This is independent DA to the perm because they have feminized China through the term and others and mutual vulnerability and rhetoric as accidents, as well as other examples of masculine newspeak to the perfect storm of nuclear risk and the plan of being Goldilocks solution abstracts the reality of use in the techno strategic way of heavily enforced by white patriarchy, lowers the barrier of conflict and makes it more likely while also changing our psyche and causing sexist and racist microaggressions. And also the critique theory of power. We made an ontological claim. Our argument about never ontology semiotics, but rather the mutability of contingency and leads to co-option and purposely a radical meaning of the state and the capital. This turns their card into the negative offense of the theory of power, and it doesn't answer us. We have said that identity is fixed in the symbolic, and yes,
We have never said that.
Okay, I don't know why this is in then. Yes, the system is power exploited because you resist the cannibalize, and if you assimilate, you will get the debate, the spectacle, and the carnival for them to perfect the status of under the squo. Best speaking language of security bureaucrats is ever more facile and a deceptive fashion to understand how to be policymakers who, lastly, semiotics are material, so you can't write off their answers to our theory of power as just ivory tower theorizing. Our arguments account for every very real violence of things like Iraq and war. Next say simulation. Our theory of information and communication is an impact turn. This argument is into dissuasive, but instead the U.S. engaged in information warfare that commodifies its purpose, anti-radical position, cybersecurity, and AI technology that result in imperial algorithmic control and human and precarious bodies and release of the under system accumulates the information possible in racial capitalism, class calcified, and that computerization system, and then treats humans and endpoints of data and extract the profit impossible, which turns arguments in AI and also surveillance and info gathering technology are intensified because the neoliberal attempts to commodify and subjugate all human life under the digital unconsciousness in the first place. Next, they say realism stuff there. Their case is impact turns to realism first. That IR ordering presume a rational, modelable relationship instead of shooting emerging from anarchy. This that kind of modeling is fundamentally the basis of the new era and redemption of the Third and Fourth World Wars take place, in which constitutively require former cultural erasure and people studied and distilled in their concretely isolatable units of analysis. Secondly, realism becomes civilized mission. It can comprehend any society outside of the picture. It meant that comprehend them and designed by any scholars of imperial core facilitate expansion of imperialism and submarine periphery and logic and production. Lastly, they misunderstand war. Why do wars continue after logic objectives finishing the detainees continue to torture even after the information and have been squeezed out? It's because they have this instilled fear of the hearts of the other. Wars don't have rational reasons to object. The war is beyond rational reasons, and war is real stuff. And no, it isn't accidental war. The only scenario is a nuclear weapon launch is when there is miscommunication, miscalculation, which is a result of semiotic communication between nuclear wielding power showing semiotic matters. And being against the war confirms the reality of war. Something has to exist for you to be against it. So you have to say that you're against the war in Iraq or war in Palestine. It solidifies, reaffirms Israel's semiotic claim of what's happening in Palestine war on itself. No, Bourgeois doesn't downplay the war in Iraq and the bloodier than a real war could have been. The idea can have been semiotically contained within it, and even if the we're impact turning confirms the existence of necessity of the nukes itself, also drop the extinction can securitization against death and ban from living, and also serves as a pretext for the West that indiscriminately wage war against the forms of deviance and stop threats, i.e. we're evaded in Iraq and sees WMDs that didn't exist, only to kill millions of people, distancing being debated, structurally disadvantaged by repetition and extinction impacts, and interrogating what it means to die. The rattle off these impacts never ask themselves what it means to be human, have agency, or what life distance from risk really entail, the lack of social capacity to engage with death, because death is mobilized to create value rather than the unproductive things like mourning or silence. Why mourn the dead when we can use the pandemic to advertise our commercials? We distance ourselves and securitize ourselves in the endless pursuit of value. We need to avoid it at all risks, not on the Palestine. Interrogation D is the current political moment of sharpening the organizer toolkit. Henry 24 says every single side of your social venue life should work towards interrogating others in the sense of Palestine as a critical and epistemic level. The debate has every single element discussed in the part.
I put it in the email chain. Okay, we have
8:17.
8:18. Oh, 8:17. Okay, we can do
18's
that.
fine.
Oh, okay. Are y'all cool with that extra second?
Yeah.
Okay. 8:18, starting now. Yes, because it is true.
Okay.
LOL. Laugh out loud.
literally 30 more seconds.
Okay.
Just trying to cover me bases. I'm done.
Thanks.
You good?
Yeah.
3:30. I'm tired of the email train. The order is case, the conventional shift disadvantage, the criticism. The order of the criticism will be the framework debate, extinction/impact debate, the permutation debate, link debate, alternative debate.
Oh, my bad. Well, where do you and prep at? Just for
3:30. It's in the email.
okay, for sure. I trust.
Is there
Let me just. And did you send cards?
no?
Okay, for sure. Let me just plug my thing in so they don't die on me. And then. Case con shift K. I am ready.
Lack of cooperation with China causes catastrophic warming, which demands all forms of structural violence because it creates the very conditions whereby white people are able to extract resources which internally turns decay on case. Now, the first argument, we do not cause things like international managerialism, nor do we spill out to Israel. Our argument is that the theory of accidents is artificial intelligence integration, so there's no securitization, not an idea of accidental war per se, which is the justification of things like Israel. Rather, we critique it, I will do that a little bit later. Regardless, it does not turn the act. We solve the states of exception, which I've done above. Regardless, there's no moot speak argument. Techno-strategic discourse is good. The alternative is least having control, which I will do on the K. Now, conventional shift, they fucked up and kicked out of it wrong. Yes, it is unique. That means we change it, which is also functionally a link turn or an impact turn to the alternative. And it also proves that every single link they've extended is just that to describe an NFU policy. It ensures a policy of restraint throughout the military. U.S. weapons programs are driven by offensive culture and minimal oversight. The plan reverses that because it ensures that the military-industrial complex is no longer able to do things like justify the existence of first-use technologies or imperialism, which all of what you see cross-ex was an explanation about, which is the Heme, Hypothetical, and Martin piece of evidence. Now, the critique, the framework debate, the negative must prove the plan's material consequences are bad. There are two impacts. First is fairness. Anything else justifies infinite, unpredictable gateway issues. That moves the one you see. Second is clash. Is the controlling internal link to education. They reckon because they exclude engagement with core app arguments. That means there's an epistemology. Just that absolute clash. We were unable to refine argument positions. That is key to determine whether a strategy is or is not good, which means we meet their interpretation. But the counter-interpretation you should reject it. It's infinitely arbitrary and causes things like substance crowd up, but we made it IR scenario planning bridges the gap between contemplating epistemology and the consequences of the plan. That is only possible if there is something to situate that endpoint of the one you see, and this is also proven by cross-examination. The impact turns group, the war, and international relations are wrong. I will do that on the hyper-reality defense. Regardless, cooperation causing war into the power of context is incorrect. Our analysis of that of a necessity of cooperation between the two, and that China is reactive to the U.S. only insofar as it is climate cooperation. We have made argument 0, and their evidence gets a C- at best in any international relations class. Protest, they do not change anything. It's irrelevant. Our argument is it is good to talk about no first-use policy. Communication fails will be on the link to be refusing. The narrative is incorrect. Our argument is that only a fixation on things like techno-strategic discourse can solve. Link to politics is wrong. We are double turning it. Yes, it is functionally you leak, you lose, which was the explanation in cross-sex of the 2 and C. Proximity, it fails. Things like upbringing, ideology, peers, surrounding environment, and religion will all thump, which means it is try or die. For our analysis of things like the military policy fairness, it is good. We are not the war machine, nor is it inevitable because structural fairness out outweighs, or procedural fairness outweighs things like structural fairness, which internally turns a clash. It is good, it is not liberal humanism, but our argument allows testing of things that are or are not liberal humanism. Utilitarianism is good. I will do that here. Any risk of extinction and outweighs the only truly fixed ontological state versus in life is a prerequisite to value, which answers their arguments about mourning, because it is impossible to do that if your dad's second averting extinction is equitable and avoids all of their disades and impacts every single individual in the long and short run. And 3, cognitive biases. They make a shrug off existential threats, so if they win any of their arguments about subjectivity, that means you're affirmative. Look, most people were anti-Iraq in Afghanistan. It was just Trump and a random bunch of neocons. They have also dropped the shift turn, which means we do not engage in that same form of calculus, and that also means that we impact turn the extinction K the valid. It is good for simulation. There's also no serial policy failure, and we solve an ethical decision making that is above, but the fiat debate functionally answers it. Go to it here. 1, research means that debating the topic causes research and advocacy skills, which is also the link term. That means that we can mobilize against things like nuclear advocacy to determine whether or not war is or is not a simulation, so content is irrelevant. 2nd is imagination and vision and critical demands. It's good. Things like the nuclear free movement have allowed us to unveil how empire operates. 3 is that utopian imaginaries are good, so whether the ballot does or does not create some form of change is irrelevant, because our argument is that the process by which that occurs is productive. Now, performative contradiction. You lose because it's a double term with your framework argument. They cited the NIPP and the Principal Secretary of Defense Programs. No take backsies, because their articulation of the framework debate says we should be held accountable for everything that we have presented in debate. Not extending it through the black is not a sufficient reason to ignore it. Otherwise, that makes ethics condition, which is liable a double turn with their arguments, or that means that you automatically vote app on the framework debate, or you grant us the permutation. Go to the permutation debate. Perm to both. It shields the Lincoln has fiat. Good stuff is a net benefit. Nuclear simulations are good. Threat analysis forces new forms of policy making the reverse of its habitual thinking. Cost benefit analysis is good. It is real world. It is also not intrinsic or severance, because it includes both. It is predictable, which is the explanation of cross-sex, which means that you should filter every single disadvantage through NFU specificity, which also impacts the militarism, dissent, and self-defense, because only we, great advocacy that spurred a successful coalition to spread the anti-nuclear movement. So even if they make arguments about no spillover, that applies to them, not us. Conceded that you should not evaluate ontology and focus on material consequences, reject those claims. War cannot be reduced to simulation. This is also an impact turn to the alternative. It ignores the real determinants of warfare and guarantees escalating military interventions, even if it's not prototype in the basic sense. They have conceded that the act can be employed in meaningful ways, even if it's perfect. Any risk of alternative or affirmative solvency, meaning can resolve the impacts. The China link conceded first use precludes every revolution. So even if there's a slight risk of a link, you vote affirmative because it gets rid of first use, which is the key starting point of every movement. Hyper reality. It is incorrect. We are participants in the real world, which makes the user be skeptical of the theory and error affirmative, which is the black term piece of evidence, regardless their thesis overly generalizes. But we've impact turned the weird, like, China bad thing, regardless realism. It's inevitable. They do not get any links. Framing issue is that they cannot fiat mind stuff of the international liberal order, which means people inevitably will pursue it, which is an impact turn to their theorization. And another reason as to why evaluation of fiat is productive.
8 minutes starting now.
I guess so. Where's this thing?
Yeah, got you.
Did you hear the timer go off?
No,
4
no,
minutes left. 4
mine-
minutes left.
Oh.
Sorry.
No.
Can I have a drink of water?
I don't have a lot left, but yeah.
Okay, I literally have none.
Well, you can have. Yeah, I'm just saying there's not a lot, so you guys much more though. I freckle.
Yummy. Okay, yeah, I'll do the latter part.
Yeah.
I think Julian's trying to get past you.
Oh, my bad. I didn't even see you.
It was the worst timer.
Yeah. Yeah, gotta finish those last 30 seconds.
Dude, we had snacks behind us this whole time. I know, I was hoping that we could take some, but like... Yeah, you can. Really? Absolutely.
Okay, then can you toss me a thing of goldfish?
I
I love
gotta go
goldfish.
nuclear.
Thank you. Ryan, do you want anything? I need my snack.
Damn. Is this the... What is...
These are like good snacks. Big kidneys.
Are these for the tournament?
Sure
is crazy.
I'm pretty
Sure is
sure.
crazy.
I really don't think that Henry is going to be upset if I took some of his.
I know some people on the English squad. I think we're good.
Yeah, I was about to say, I was like, you're the authority here.
I'm texting Henry right now.
It's literally like
Mr. Mitchell.
conventional shift. Then I'm gonna do the perfcon thing. Then I'm gonna do the criticism.
Are you good? Okay, the goals are good.
You dropped the linchpin of militarism, DA, which is a direct answer to all of the 2AC arguments on conventional shift, because the thesis of the K is a dissent to the idea that removing nuclear weapons would make the US more ethical, which means we still get the link. All of them rely on saying that first use postures are the reason militarization happens. You can look through 2AC evidence, but also they did not extend specific pieces of evidence or say what warrants there are for it, which means that you should not do work for the 1AR because that makes it impossible for the 2AR to know what warrants are gate. The 1AC has theorized the nuclear bomb and the threat of first use as the end-all be-all of linchpin of militarism. If you take the roof off, the house stays intact. The rhetorical idea affirms the sovereign capacity to wage war. It says we'll wage it up as much into until the point of nukes, which, and they've also dropped their arguments about perceptual legitimacy, that doing this allows them to steward the international order. And lastly, they've dropped that the self-preservation DA, that the NFU enshrines the right to self-defense because of the thing that makes an organizing structure sovereign is the ability to defend its territorial integrity, and affirms long-held standards of we can still protect our borders whenever we need to without using nukes, which requires militarism. We don't need to win. It results in conventional shift, but winning that the uniqueness is bad means that we can also just say the uniqueness probably overwhelms whatever they think the app's link turn is, and means that the app cannot reverse it. The idea of declaring an NFU would change anything about the military-industrial complex is a facade that masks the illusion of power that creates genocide. Perfcon. Conceded Congo, Negflex from multiple angles turns and outweighs all their scandals. When we still preserve education, allow for nuanced strategy while allowing in-depth testing. Framing point, affirmative should not shift because that is bad for the debatability, but the negative is allowed to read multiple positions. They've also conceded that impact defense is impossible to read on case without having some sort of authors that defend it. Lastly, we're not going for the techno-strategic discourse. So again, it is not a perfcon. Perfcons that are not extended through the block are sufficient to ignore because they don't make the 1AR or 2AR rebuttals hard. Obviously, the 2AC should be hard. That maximizes debatability, makes the debate better for you to judge. And obviously, all of our arguments about the K impact turns whatever the terminal impact to a performative contradiction is, because it would just be fairness, which means it just begs the question of them winning. They get to weigh the plan because winning that their model or app was violent in the first place outweighs whatever reasons the 1NC was bad. Critique. I had the timer going off after they said realism is inevitable, so you cannot evaluate any arguments they said that. So any of the mindset stuff or people inevitably pursue is the only argument, but the entire K is an impact turn to realism. Their IR ordering presumes a rational, modelable relationship about state units that emerge from anarchy, which proves that it is not inevitable because our argument is that it's the basis of a new era of preemption, which turns on any link turn on conventional shift. The third and fourth worlds take place and it requires a form of cultural erasure of people studied into isolatable units of analysis. It's a civilizing mission that can't comprehend society fed outside of them and isn't meant to comprehend them. It's designed by and for scholars of the imperial court. If we win, realism is wrong. It's only inevitable in the context of policy making, but conceding the fiat K means we can win on framework because we should reject their realism rhetoric for its violent. Even if something is inevitable in the world of policymakers, even if they win spill up, then that means critiquing people on the ways in which debaters formulate ideas in round can help create some sort of change, which is actually their arguments on epistemology under the framework and clash argument. They've also dropped the theory for charity cannibalism, and this occurs through the false gift of inclusion to the other that mass the other is forced to conform to the tenets of liberal capitalism. We're just going for this as a critique of their extinction framing. The inclusion of the other makes us addicted to the positive feedback loop of consumption of otherings, which is why you cannot vote AF, because in order to vote AF on extinction outweighs, you'd have to get addicted to the process of extinction impact within debate, which is the process of having images of violence to mobilize us against it. Framework is the only other thing I need to win because framework moots the permutation, and we don't need to defend an overall theory of simulation just to say that integrating people's suffering is bad and so is realism, and none of the China stuff answers that because including the impacts of climate change for China is bad. The app is first and foremost the narrative. The narrative is one that asks you to imbue more and more faith into the political as a media artifact. Their justifications prefigure their political horizon, so we can get links to their justifications and spill up into political horizons, dropped literally maybe floating pick because we said you can vote neg to reject their rhetorical investments, especially true when they've said realism good. We haven't said realism good, so the perfcon still doesn't apply here. And also The Athens are defeating the sign. They conflate. The main thing is the DA about Iraq war is dropped. They said most people were against Iraq. That is our argument. Most people were against Iraq, and the occupation still continued, which proves that the ideas of what people do here, that the idea they can just change the conception, even when the protests were the biggest human history is bad. We don't need the alt if we win framework. Vote next to refuse their narrative because the ask justification. What I said that was maybe the floating cake was ask justifications prefigure their political horizons. We get links to their justifications proving a neg dot can refuse said justifications without refusing the plan, and then those links fill up into political horizons. Now, even if you don't buy that, you can just take the alternative because conditionality is good, status quo always a logical option. Now, you must think through process of app implementation to come to a decision instead of consequentialist cost-benefit analysis. Now, unfairness and F conceded speed differences, access coaching, funding gap, discrepancy, judge evaluation. Their model allows neg shiftiness. Our model doesn't destroy a chance to win. It just forces you to defend ideological presumptions are good. If we impact term the reason their model is bad, then obviously that doesn't outweigh whatever reasons it is good to preserve the internals of debate because they haven't answered that. Even if they are not the military-industrial complex, they are the ones who are supporting the forms of violence like realism that are violent. Our link straight turns the skills and education their model produces, which outweighs the epistemology and clash debate because it promotes unethical decision-making to save the collective and sacrifices them and crushes critical clash and proves consequentialism is a bad ethical filter, conceded that there's internal violence to realism that can't be consequentially evaluated. Then let's ask dodge accountability for unethical ideas. Lastly, Fiat K conceded answer stimulation and perm because there's no net benefit. You are the simulation, you don't spill it. The ballot can't pass policy or effectuate any policy making spill. Perm either severs or intrinsic and severs out of realism and is bad for the app. The app moving target is back. Neg flex meaning negs, we should have different positions. The forms app shiftiness kills debatability. Co-option DA conceded semiotic integration governments do, which proves the argument against extinction, recreates and supercharges the simulation difference and independently ensures the alt fails. Fiat itself is a simulation, not going for China stuff, extinction stuff answered, and war a non-event is not needed to win. That realism is bad.
We have 3:30.
Same time.
Yeah, man, absolutely. That's the last one.
My calculations were off.
Thank you. Oh, okay, yeah, then that's fine. Yeah, I just structural violence is definitely bad. Almost done. I'm gonna hand it to you.
Which room is this?
Oh, which one is it?
135, I think.
Yeah.
Something like that.
I think correct. I think what you're saying is correct.
Okay, and plus that.
It's 1:30.
130, nice.
Not turn the page. And then the alt, you should just you said it wasn't a floating peg. Why do you lie?
What was the second thing you said?
You did not cross X with like not.
Oh, yeah.
And now you're just like fun fact.
Yeah.
Also, the answer to it, like besides that, is you should just be impact turning the net benefit to this garbage.
I sent a email over to Michaela thanking them for the snacks.
Oh. Oh shit.
It'll work out. It'll work out.
It's only fair exchange.
It's true, they're not judging. That's what, they're not judging at the moment.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I'm gonna scoot over next to you so we can snuggle.
Snuggle. No. 6 feet.
I do find it endearing that even when you're speed reading, you manage to insert the Minnesotan into a few of the words.
We'll go first.
It was funny, they're not even from Minnesota.
I have
So you've embraced it.
I've totally embraced it. Like hot dish, I love hot dish now.
Ew, I'm from Minnesota and I think hot dish is a sin.
I
Hot
don't.
dish is yummy.
What is a hot dish?
Disgusting. It's a casserole with like tater tots on top. It's gross. It's wrong. It's so wrong.
A casserole with tater tots is great.
I don't know how. I mean, tater tots on anything.
It's okay. It's
The
like
I like tater
casserole
tots by
has
themselves.
yucky.
so it's like a comfort thing.
Listen, no one ever said the food there was good. Okay.
Here, actually, give me a second. I'm gonna grab this.
Can you? Oh, this is good. Okay, the order. Item. Accident. I'll be honest, I'm just gonna do everything on the K.
So just case critique.
Yeah, I'm gonna do the like conventional shift stuff on the K. I'll just tell you what I'm doing it.
Is this what you're saying? Is straight down?
Yeah, pretty much. I'm just
Okay.
not going to different pieces of paper. I should put it on the K.
Sure.
Okay, good. Julian, are you good? Yeah. Okay, sweet. Co-op failure outweighs only soothing relations to reciprocal out of view resolves. 1, climate change is irreversible. We are at a point now. China and US are the largest emitters, which means that it's try or die. For the affirmative, it outweighs their impact because it controls the internal links to their impacts. And 2, pandemics, they spread fast, kill the critters on the brink, and isolation prevents successful co-op for global collaboration. 3, things like vaccines, prevention or mitigation. And 4, runaway tech, we cannot control it. New advances pose new existential risks that we can't preempt them. That outweighs on time from the outpace. Checks on escalation, you should filter the debate through magnitude. It's a controlling internal link to all of their scenarios because all of their scenarios are about structural violence, but all of those things are exceptionally worse under extinction. Plus, the link cannot, I will do the extinction outweighs to be in a second, but the link cannot turn case. The lack of explanatory power and the 2 and are about the affirmative in the context of simulation, type of reality, and whatever other piece which Butler frame says you want to use means that you default to the app internal links because they're the only things that are prescriptive to the way that the CCP functions, the way that the United States functions. Extinction outweighs. If they're going to take it on ethics, then you have an ethical obligation to stop extinction because it is bad. It's the only truly fixed ontological state. It creates the petri dish for structural violence, which makes all of their impacts infinitely worse. The process of extinction is a painful process of why people will always make their way into the bunker and ensure that they take all the resources to survive, and it magnifies all of their psychic violence claims because it's the worst thing that people can experience and the worst way to go. Conceded that any other method of evaluating is the logic of the goulash. So extinction is the only, it's equitable and doesn't choose favorites. It's conceded, which means that it's the only way that you can evaluate the round. The access advantage, I will concede it. There's no offense on it. Go to the K. On framework, our interprets that the mag must prove the plan's material consequences are bad. That means that you should weigh the act against any link impacts. The impact is clash with the controlling internal link to all of their impacts. They arbitrarily exclude engagement with court acts about the desirability of an NFU and the framework issue. Framing issue for the flow is the epistemology decided. Internal link turns all of their standards only clash allows us to refine argument positions to test whatever revolutionary strategy is best. In the real world, activists constantly evaluate new strategies because the alt-right is hyper-fixated on preventing any revolutionary that our theory of powers and net benefit because it's crucial to understand the inner workings of the state and the military because those things are inevitable. The alternative is policy elites having sole knowledge of traits of bad forms of scholarship they critique. You should protect the counter-inter. It's infinitely arbitrary. There's no way for us to prove that the app is an artifact, but they dropped me. Irish scenario planning is good and productive. Winning this alone means that you the app on reverse presumption because even if they win some wrong. I did that above. With scenario planning being good, plus the 2 and R only extended links to R. Politics / ballot proximity argument, which is wrong. Things like the surrounding environment, upbringing, ideology, peers, and religion all shape their subjectivity more than one debate round, which means that their explanation about why our version of fiat is bad is a reason why intensive communication are good. This means that being a rhetorical advancement is incorrect. The access levels of material power that the military uses to enact things like first use and deterrence are the biggest levels of empire. A 1% risk of the app is good, it justifies the ballot, and on the perf-con stuff, I'm not going for it as a vote. It is just a reason why they have double turned themselves on framework, which is a risk of the app outweighing the links is sufficient to vote app. They cited the NIPP, which is a neocon blended think tank dedicated to U.S. hegemony, and they cited the principal secretary of defense programs who engages in their definition of securitization of the process of a war machine. That means we can sever to Netflix does not matter. We met you on your framing ground, and that case cards are relevant because you also wrote case cards that are not from these hacks. If we have they're stuck with the choices of the 1NC, you are stuck with the choices of the 1NC. You said ethics, we have impact yours. Also, if there's any risk that the act can be employed in a good and ethical manner, it means that you can devote it primitive. You should have some leniency considering perf-con is suddenly okay, which clearly means the language and representations are not concrete. Also, it proves that things can be retooled for different purposes, i.e. the idea that if you may have some flaws with the risk that it can do good things outweighs the potential negative risk plus, and if you is good, it can be retooled for different things. One, it's a good way to talk about nuclear policy generally, which you can turn us into advocates and actually do positive things. That's the tangible evidence is conceded. Things like don't think on the bomb and the nuke freeze. We've been proved that it can be conducive to anti-nuclear politics too. Preventing extinction is good. It gives the ultimate data reformulate itself. It stops the worst suffering. You have an ethical obligation to prevent it. 3, the link turn is conceded that NFU ensures a policy of restraint through military policy, which also proves that if they win arguments about how the state can be found in other areas of pros and prove the changing U.S. military policy to shift away from hegemonic and militaristic ideas of being able to first state countries that the DoD thinks are adversaries like China is functionally a form of state sabotage because it adds the ability for the U.S. to engage in things like empire through threatening nuclear use. Because the U.S. weapons programs is driven by offensive culture and minimum oversight, the plan gets rid of that by ensuring new weapons are defensive and signaled as such. It's a hidden hack in front of the Martin evidence. This is all on the conventional safety side, which is not an answer, which functionally link turns and improves that the app is a good idea. This answers the conventional stuff because it proves that the state will go for it. Also, it means that it doesn't matter. Even if it is inevitable, it still proves that the U.S. is going to restrain and still do good things, and still proves that there's a risk that it is good. Also, on simulation theory, they have not answered it well. They've conceded that it's wrong. It is wrong and functionally conceded, which means that if you don't believe in realism, simulation theory is wrong. It cannot be used to describe the link that's in order. Yeah, that's our evidence. And also, think they did not answer reality is real. We are participants in the real world, which means that you should be skeptical of their theory and error affirmative. That's a backward evidence, and fiat is good. 1, it is good for education and to ensure that we can actually think about these things and use them in revolutionary potential is the process of debating itself, not necessarily the content that turns us into revolutionary actors. That's the tangible evidence in person. And 2, also, it is good to imagine things because it's the only way that we can test things. Also, realism is true and effective in both the US and CCP's actions and internationally. And it's offense against framework because it proves their model of activism teaches people the wrong ideas, and it's offense against y'all because it proves they foreclose the actual solution to world ending regardless of what ours argument was not after the timer went off. Anyway, they started ended the case being the 1AR does not create an unethical world. Even if this is true, they have not explained why it causes an ethical decision. State sabotage blood proofs, even if we don't win that, it's inevitability, which also means all their offense, which means even if you don't believe in that, also the concession of simulation theory means that you have nothing else to default to, and lack of explanatory power of the affirmative via their explanation means that if you do it, also the pig stuff, it is not a floating pig. Cross said it was not a floating pig. Plus, we've impact turn the net benefit to the subscribers, which takes out the utility of being a plague. Plus, if they think the plan is good, it means that the plan has some net benefits, which means that you just vote affirmative. Good round.
So y'all, yeah, good debate.
Do you want a card dog?
Not really.
Now they're real.
No.
Okay. Is this true?
I know that the other ones were vacant, so I know that that definitely.
Yeah, I do know that. I'm not ask for this guy.
I'm gonna go fix those. That'll be me.
Okay, yeah.
We'll talk after. Good round.